Tuesday, 8:47 a.m. The phone on Daniel Reeves's kitchen table buzzed with a caller ID he had never expected to see. FBI Financial Crimes Division. He stared at the screen for 3 full rings, thumb hovering, then pressed answer.
Hello? This is Daniel Reeves. Who's calling?
Mr. Reeves, my name is Agent Camille Ross with the FBI Financial Crimes Division. I'm calling because you've been flagged as a victim in a significant fraud cluster. 4 credit cards have been opened in your name over the past 14 months, with total charges exceeding $61,000.
The transactions traced to electronics retailers and a cash advance ring. Then she asked the one question. Daniel's grip tightened on the phone. He had no knowledge of these accounts.
Are you willing to press charges against the individual the evidence points to?
The question landed like a physical blow. Daniel's mouth opened, but no sound came. In that moment, the weight of a decision that could send someone to federal prison pressed down on him, and he didn't have an answer ready.
Who committed the fraud? Are you allowed to tell me that?
The evidence points to a member of your immediate family, Mr. Reeves. Your younger brother, Brandon Reeves.
The kitchen seemed to tilt. Daniel gripped the edge of the table to keep his balance.
Brandon. The brother who'd burned every bridge, and now he'd stolen his name.
IP addresses, shipping addresses. It's all tied to locations where Brandon Reeves has been residing.
I need time. Can you give me 48 hours before I commit to anything?
I'll give you 48 hours, but the window won't stay open forever. I'll call you back then.
The line went dead. Daniel slid the phone onto the counter and pressed his palms into his eyes.
In 2 days, he had to decide whether his brother went to federal prison.
The clock had started. In 48 hours, Daniel Reeves would hand down a verdict that no one else could. Without hesitation, Daniel picked up his phone again and dialed his parents' landline.
Daniel? Is that you? You never call this early? What's happened?
I just got a call from the FBI. 4 credit cards opened in my name. They traced it to Brandon.
We knew he was in a bad way, son. But we didn't think it would get criminal.
How long have you known about this? Weeks? Months?
Daniel, honey, please. We didn't want to upset you. He's your baby brother. You know how fragile he is. If you press charges, it'll ruin him. He's barely holding on since rehab. You can't do this to family.
We'll pay the money back ourselves. Just don't let this become a federal case. Think of the family.
I need 48 hours to figure this out. Don't call me until then.
He hung up, the click echoing. In the quiet of his kitchen, he realized the betrayal ran deeper than he'd imagined. Daniel went to his home office, pulled up his credit report, and scanned the entries. The 4 fraudulent cards glowed red against his screen.
There it was, a joint savings account with his father, still active. His parents had access to everything.
Years ago, they'd co-signed a car loan. His social security number had been on file in their house ever since.
Marcus, it's Daniel Reeves. I need to see you immediately. My brother opened 4 credit cards in my name. The FBI is involved.
Slow down, Daniel. I can see you today at 4. Bring every statement and any joint account details you can find.
I'll be there. And Marcus, I need to know how to protect my assets before my parents try to liquidate something to cover this.
We'll set up a trust immediately. For now, don't speak to your family about any financial moves. I'll see you at 4.
He had 48 hours, but he wasn't going to spend them begging his family to do the right thing.
He opened his file cabinet and pulled out every joint document he'd ever signed with his parents, stacking them methodically. The clock was ticking, but for the first time that day, Daniel felt the ground under his feet. He had a plan. While Daniel stacked his financial papers, a darker piece of the puzzle was assembling itself in his memory. 14 months ago, Brandon Reeves sat in their parents' den, sifting through a forgotten tax folder. A single social security number caught his eye.
Daniel's number just sitting there like it was waiting for him.
That night, he filled out 4 credit card applications, using slight name variations and his own phone number. The system hardly blinked. Within a week, glossy welcome envelopes landed at the Reeves mailbox. Brandon grabbed them before his parents noticed. He started with a gaming console, testing the waters, then a laptop. Within months, he was ordering $1,000 electronics, One card he saved for cash advances at a laundromat turned ringer, draining $18,000 over 6 months.
All while our parents claimed they didn't know. But how could they miss the packages? The new gadgets?
The old photo of him and Brandon as kids sat on his shelf. Two brothers, once inseparable, now separated by a federal crime. Brandon hadn't just stolen his identity. He'd exploited every loose thread in a family that had spent years ignoring the damage right in front of them. At 4 o'clock sharp, Daniel walked into Marcus Webb's office carrying a manila folder thick with statements.
I need an irrevocable trust for my inheritance and every joint account closed by tomorrow afternoon.
An irrevocable trust will shield your assets completely. But Daniel, your parents will see this as a declaration of war.
Then let them see it that way. I'm not going to let their protection of Brandon ruin me too.
Then I'll have the trust documents drafted tonight and the joint account severance paperwork ready by noon.
Marcus slid a draft across the desk. The header read Irrevocable Trust, Daniel Reeves, grantor and beneficiary.
Once this is signed, no family member can touch it. It also locks them out of any future claim on your estate.
Good. I'll sign it when you're ready. Right now, I need to make sure my parents can't empty my accounts today.
They shook hands. Marcus began typing as Daniel stood up, the sound of legal language filling the room. By the time the sun set, a trust that would protect his entire inheritance was in motion, and his parents didn't know it yet. Wednesday morning, Daniel drove to the bank with a leather briefcase containing every joint account document he owned.
I need to close a joint savings account I hold with Robert Reeves and transfer my share into a sole-owned account.
The manager pulled up the history. Daniel's eyes stopped on 2 small withdrawals from last month, initiated by Linda Reeves.
My mother, dipping into my account while my credit gets torched. Print every transaction from the last 6 months for me. I'll need the originals for my records.
The closure request went through. His balance transferred into a solo account his parents could not touch. A thick envelope of printed statements sealed the evidence. Linda's signature, the dates, the amounts, all irrefutable.
They were supposed to be the ones protecting me. Instead, they were grooming my own accounts to finance Brandon's chaos.
He walked out of the bank with his finances severed and a paper trail that would speak louder than any family plea. 36 hours remained on the FBI's clock, but Daniel's side of the board was now bulletproof. Back home, Daniel placed his phone on the kitchen table, switched on a digital recorder, and dialed into a 3-way call.
Mom, Dad, I need a straight answer. When did you first realize something was wrong with Brandon's money?
Son, there was a credit card bill with your name on it months ago. We thought Brandon had opened one by mistake.
He promised he'd pay it back, Daniel. We didn't want to stress you. You were doing so well.
The recorder's waveform jumped as their voices filled the room.
So you were aware Brandon was using my name for months. You knew and said nothing.
We were going to fix it ourselves. We didn't think it would ever get this far.
I asked for 48 hours. That window closes tomorrow night. I'll let you know what I decide then.
He ended the call. The recorder kept spinning, capturing the silence that followed. On the drive was his parents' admission, clear as glass. They'd known for months. Now the weight of that truth rested squarely in Daniel's hands. In the quiet of his apartment, Daniel sat motionless on the couch, the digital recorder still blinking on the table beside him, waiting to be used. The framed photo of him and Brandon as kids caught his eye from the shelf. 2 brothers, once inseparable, now separated by a federal crime.
Brandon got every second chance. He got the first, the second, the third, and our parents always cleaned up the mess. When I graduated top of my class, they didn't come. When Brandon got out of rehab, they threw a party. I was invisible.
He picked up his phone, scrolled to Agent Ross's number, and stared at the digits, the weight of what he was about to do pressing on his chest.
If I press, he does federal time. If I don't, I'm enabling him forever.
The screen dimmed. He set it down without dialing.
Marcus, it's Daniel. Are the trust documents ready?
Ready to sign. I can have you in and out in 20 minutes.
The clock ticked toward the final morning, but the decision no longer felt like a weight. It felt like a direction. The ink was dry on the trust instrument within the hour. Daniel uncapped the pen, read every line, and signed his full name.
That's it. Irrevocable. Your parents can't touch this trust now, no matter what happens.
He also handed over a flash drive containing the recording of his parents, admitting they knew for months.
If this goes to trial, that recording will be gold. Your brother isn't the only one who could face charges.
I'm not going to let my parents keep cutting corners for him.
Marcus nodded and said, "Then you know what you have to do." Daniel stepped out into the morning air, the signed trust in his briefcase, and pulled up Agent Ross's number. Before he could lose his nerve, he pressed the call button. The line rang once, then twice. Each ring echoed in his ears like a countdown, then a click. This was it.
Agent Ross, is this Daniel Reeves? I was expecting your call.
I'm ready to answer your question. I'm willing to press charges. Cooperate fully. Whatever you need.
His voice didn't waver, though his hand around the phone trembled almost imperceptibly.
We will issue a warrant immediately. Brandon Reeves will be arrested at your parents' residence.
I understand. Do what's necessary. I'm not backing down now.
You're doing the right thing, Mr. Reeves. Expect our call when the arrest is complete.
The line went dead. Daniel sat in his car, gripping the wheel until his knuckles turned white, the morning sun climbing.
It was done. In less than 48 hours, he had decided his brother's fate. There was no taking it back.
Across town, 2 black SUVs were already being fueled. The arrest warrant had been signed, the operation set for dawn. Daniel had 48 hours to decide. He used them to build a fortress around his assets. Now the drawbridge was rising. At 6:15 a.m., 2 black SUVs rolled up to Robert and Linda Reeves's house, and federal agents stepped onto the porch.
What in God's name is this? You can't just take my son.
He's fragile. Please, don't do this. He's been in rehab. He's trying.
Brandon, still in his hoodie, didn't resist. He wouldn't meet anyone's eyes as they led him to the car.
It has to be Daniel. Who else would call the feds?
From a parked car 50 yards back, Daniel Reeves watched the whole thing, his hands steady on the wheel.
14 months of lies, and it ends with federal agents on the front lawn.
Robert screamed at the agents, but his voice broke when Brandon didn't even look back. Daniel started the ignition and pulled away before anyone noticed the lone car on the corner. No one in the Reeves house saw him leave, but Daniel's answer had been delivered in the only language that mattered. That afternoon, Brandon Reeves was formally charged with 4 counts of federal credit card fraud. The family finally knew who had pressed charges.
You betrayed this family. Your own brother. I don't care what he did. You don't do this to blood. Don't contact us again.
Daniel let the voicemail play twice, then saved it to a secure folder alongside the bank records. Linda's Facebook update read, "Pray for us. A Judas in the family has chosen the law over loyalty." He took a screenshot, the post time-stamped, and her name clear. Another piece of evidence for the file. He knew the public narrative was already being spun, but he wasn't going to fight it in the comments. He opened his contacts, selected both Robert and Linda Reeves, and pressed the block button with a thumb that didn't shake.
Marcus, the family is circling the wagons. I need to know what comes next legally.
Marcus told him to stay silent. Don't engage. Their anger will be a problem in court, but the evidence was solid. Focus on the process. Daniel closed his laptop and sat alone. The apartment darker now, but his mind sharper than it had been in years. The days after the arrest brought a relentless wave of pressure from his parents, desperate to undo what had been set in motion. Linda's email read, "Your brother's life is in your hands. We can't sleep. Please, for the family, reconsider." Daniel didn't reply, but he forwarded the email to Marcus with a single line. Add to the file. On a rainy Saturday morning, heavy knocking shook his front door.
Daniel, I know you're in there. Open the door. This is your father.
I'm not opening the door, Dad. There's nothing to talk about.
Your mother is sick with worry. He's your brother. You can still make this right.
He committed a federal crime. I'm not the one who did this. Go home, Dad.
Silence, then heavy footsteps fading. Robert didn't call out again. Alone, Daniel leaned against the doorframe, his heart heavy but his decision unchanged. The case would proceed. 2 months later, in a federal courtroom in Detroit, Brandon Reeves stood before a judge in an orange jumpsuit. The plea agreement lay on the defense table, already signed by the prosecution. The facts were not in dispute. The judge sentenced him to 14 months in federal prison plus $61,000 in restitution. The gavel struck.
No, please, Your Honor, he'll never make it in there.
Robert turned in his seat to glare at Daniel, who sat motionless in the back row, his face unreadable.
His father's fury was a weight against his chest, but he didn't look away. He'd carried worse.
Brandon signed the plea agreement with a shaking hand, then avoided every eye in the room as the bailiff let him out.
We'll lose him, Robert. We'll lose him to that place.
14 months. Shorter than the time Brandon had stolen from him, but longer than it would take for his family to forgive.
As Daniel walked out, his mother's sobs followed him down the marble hallway, but he did not turn back. The cost was already paid. Daniel returned to his apartment, the silence like a held breath after the courtroom's chaos. He checked his phone, 14 missed calls, all from Linda. He pressed play on the final voicemail.
We can't do this anymore, Daniel. You're dead to us. Don't contact us again.
He deleted the message, the recording gone from his phone, but the words already etched into him. The apartment felt emptier than it ever had.
He had lost his family, but he hadn't lost himself. That had to count for something.
He walked to the window and watched the streetlights flicker on. His reflection didn't flinch.
The choice had been made. The price was paid. Now he had to live with it.
He closed his eyes and let the city noise fill the silence, knowing tomorrow would be the first day of whatever came next. The seasons turned. Daniel threw himself into his work, and slowly the weight on his shoulders began to lighten. By the end of the first year, his credit score was restored, his apartment redecorated, his life distinctly his own. He cleared out the last shoebox of childhood photos. The only one he kept was of 2 brothers, taken long before the fracture. 14 months after the sentencing, a family acquaintance mentioned Brandon had been released and was back at their parents'.
He'd expected some reaction, a pang of anger, a sliver of guilt. There was nothing. That door was sealed.
2 years after the FBI call that started it all, his parents' numbers were still blocked, the silence a fortress.
I rebuilt it all. The credit, the trust in myself, the peace. They don't get to touch any of it anymore.
He poured his coffee and stepped onto the balcony, the morning sun warm on his face.
Some families are broken by anger. This one was broken by a choice, and he'd made the right one.
The city sprawled below, indifferent but his. He took a deep breath of the new day. The phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, a sound he hadn't heard in 2 years. The screen read, "Mom." He picked up after 2 rings, voice level but careful.
Daniel, it's your mother. Her voice was strained, trying for casual but failing. Brandon needs a co-signer for a halfway house. His release requires it. We know it's a lot to ask, but he's served his time. Your father's credit is ruined.
She paused, waiting. The silence carried all the years she'd been absent.
Every call they'd ever made to him started with a problem only he could solve.
Daniel leaned against the counter, letting the city hum fill the pause. He could feel the old anger try to rise, but it had nowhere to go. He pressed the phone to his ear and let her wait, his answer not yet given.
I understand why you're asking, but the answer is no. I won't co-sign anything.
After everything, you can't do this one thing. He's out. He's trying to start over.
He started over once already, the day he opened those cards in my name.
It's not the same. He's been through so much. You could help him and just walk away.
No. He used my social security number to steal $61,000. If I sign, I'm linked to him again. I won't do it.
So this is your final answer? You're shutting the door on your own brother forever?
Yes.
He hung up before she could respond, the click severing the last thread. No tremor in his hand, no regret in his chest, just the quiet certainty of a boundary that would never move again. From that same drawer, he pulled out a familiar envelope, the FBI seal still crisp after 2 years. He unfolded the crisp FBI letter and read the first lines again, the agency's official language unchanged after 2 years. He walked to his home office without a word, placed the letter face down on the copier, and pressed the start button. The machine whirred to life, a bright scan line traveling across the page, then a perfect copy slid into the tray. He took the copy, slid it into a plain white envelope, and wrote Linda Reeves in careful block letters with a black pen. No note, no explanation. The letter itself would say everything she needed to remember. Downstairs, the blue USPS mailbox stood on the corner, its metal mouth waiting. He pulled the heavy handle, dropped the envelope inside, and let the lid clank shut with a finality that echoed down the street. For a moment he stood still, then turned and walked back toward his building without looking back. In his apartment, the silence was different now. Not empty, but settled, like a room that had finally stopped spinning. 2 years earlier, a single question had come. Today, he had answered it for the final time. A few days later, the phone buzzed on the counter. The screen read, "Mom." He silenced it without a second thought. A text appeared then. "I got your message. You've made your point." He read the words, his face unchanging. No anger, no satisfaction, just a quiet confirmation that the door was shut. He slid the phone into his pocket and finished pouring his coffee, his movements unhurried, his morning routine unchanged. He unlocked the glass door and stepped onto the balcony, the morning sun warming his face. The city sprawled below, indifferent but his. He leaned on the rail and let the air fill his lungs. 2 years of silence, broken only by a letter and a single text. He didn't need an apology. He didn't need a reunion. He needed exactly what he had, a life that was his own. Some families are broken by anger, others by choice, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is close the door. He didn't know if his mother would call again. He didn't need to know. This was enough. The sun slipped behind the skyline and the city glowed orange. Daniel watched from his balcony, the coffee long gone cold.
2 years since the call. The weight he'd carried for decades before that was nowhere in his chest.
He didn't think about Brandon or his parents or the letter he'd mailed. He thought about the silence. It was the first silence in his life that didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like a choice.
He'd made the right one. Not for revenge, not for punishment, for himself.
He stood up, stretched, and took one last look at the city below. The lights were flickering on, 1,000 lives he'd never know. His own life, small in the vastness, but wholly his. That was enough. He turned and walked back inside, leaving the balcony door open to let the evening breeze fill the apartment. Some bonds aren't broken by anger, but by peace. And peace was the last thing his brother could ever steal. And the night came, quiet and full.